So I'm fashionably late on a Valentine's Day special review. And I don't mean I'm getting one out weeks after Valentine's Day. I mean, I've never done a Valentine's Day episode review before. Now, I have nothing against the holiday, or even episodes centered around it, but a lot of the ones I've come across are just pretty straightforward with very little to say. Though, I have come across a few specials that I think do give me enough material for a review. And I guess it's time to finally talk about one of my favorites of these episodes, Ed, Edd and Eddy's Hanky, Panky, Hullabalo. Yeah, that title alone gives you a good idea of what this episode is going to be like. And this episode, for the most part, really stands out to me because it acknowledges all these cliches with Valentine's Day in such a subtle yet ingenious way that it's really hard not to be charmed by it. But not only does it poke fun at the cliches, it also shows it has an understanding of what Valentine's Day is supposed to be about. Now, its plot is pretty simple. May wants Ed to be her Valentine, and Ed has a very Ed-like reaction to that, which breaks her heart. And when Double D gives her a Valentine to cheer her up, she ends up suddenly smitten with him. And when she starts showing off how smart she can be, Double D ends up suddenly falling for her too. And the other Eds and Canker sisters start trying to tear them apart, a la Romeo and Juliet.
Get a grip, Romeo! That's a canker you're falling for!
Forget the bum, Meg.
Now, while that sounds like a basic plot, it's actually handled in a very smart way. First off, May and Double D aren't falling for each other naturally. They're actually put under the spells of these Cupid versions of Jimmy and Sarah. Which, yeah, the very idea of Sarah being a god of love is, in itself, one of the funniest things I've seen from the show. The tough, constantly angry one becoming a chipper, lovesick, innocent entity is one of those jokes that just writes itself.
Never shall a note be written, the blood gets thicker still!
Honestly, the whole supernatural thing is a really smart way to do something like this. First off, what makes this pairing so hilarious is it's probably the absolute last relationship you would expect to see happen on this show. For those who aren't familiar with this show, the Cankers are made to be a nuisance to the Eds, in the same way little girls are nuisances to little boys that they like. Though, of course, in as much of an exaggerated manner as possible. And they all have specific Eds they're attracted to. Lee likes Eddy, Marie likes Double D, and May likes Ed. And you never really think about them being attracted to anyone but their assigned Eds, let alone an Ed possibly liking them back. So by adding in a supernatural reason for this happening, it makes it a lot easier to accept, thus allowing fresh new possibilities for this show's humor. Also, as is typical with Ed, Edd and Eddy, there's nice little subtle things thrown in that kind of add a little more to the scene. For example, the Valentine Double D gives to May is originally meant for Naz, who's the girl next door character that the majority of the boys love. So, there's something kind of admirable about Double D sacrificing something meant for a girl he clearly has feelings for to someone he feels needs it more. Little things like that really show off how good-natured Double D is, and it also adds a little bit of an aw factor to what's already a sweet moment. And that's not the only sweet moment in the episode. After May gets put under Cupid's spell, she gives Double D a Valentine, which he rediscovers after being awoken from the spell. And there's something sincere about the face he gives, which I will discuss later in this review. But first, let's talk about something else I really like about this special, like the comedy. Despite having a lot of lovey-dovey Valentine's Day moments, this episode still manages to get as much humor in as it can, and there's an abundance of it that just really hits home, specifically from the reactions of everyone to May and Double D. From the jealous Marie watching her sister flirt with her crush, to the disgusted reactions of the other cul-de-sac kids at Double D and May's behavior. I mean, even if you are in a relationship on Valentine's Day, it's hard not to look at the other's reactions and somehow relate to how you must have felt seeing a couple this gaga over each other. And you know it wouldn't be an Ed, Edd and Eddy episode without a little subtle adult humor thrown in. Like this scene where the Cankers are raiding May's locker. Though, I gotta ask, if this was a role reversal and it was May's ass in Double D's locker, would that be considered controversial now? Yeah, probably. Also, Ed's hilarious. I feel like that's kind of a given at this point, but his solutions to keeping girls away just make me laugh every time.
Girls do not like stinky breath. A spider. Girls hate them. Sarah said so. Tickly. Spider! Get it up! Get it up!
And I, of course, can't forget about the cafeteria scene, which is like a really weird fanfiction brought to life. The Cupids, realizing that their actions have caused the Edds and Kankers to virtually go to war, start shooting everyone with arrows, making all of them fall in love with, well, probably the most humorous people they could have fallen for.
You're so righteous, babe. May I have this dance?
Where have you been all my life?
I think Eddy falling in love with Plank and Ed falling for a sandwich are classic moments that no Ed, Edd, and Eddy fan is ever gonna forget. But I think my absolute favorite thing about this episode is that it's a clear-cut, open mockery of how everyone views Valentine's Day. And I mean everyone. No cliched Valentine person is unexaggerated in this episode. Now, one thing I've said I enjoy about this show in general is they have a really good way of portraying how kids and teenagers think. One example being X Marks the Ed, which portrays a teenager's inner thoughts when they get their first pimple. They picture everyone staring at them, making fun of them, viewing them as freaks, and they picture their zit growing every time they look at it. Well, this episode does the same style with how everyone views Valentine's Day. Or at least how everyone complains people view Valentine's Day. May and Double D represent the stereotypical couple on Valentine's Day. They're overly lovey-dovey, they're sickeningly sappy, they just make anyone who's single groan.
Your gaze alone would heal any wound.
You're so adorable! I could just eat you up!
And speaking of that, there's also someone who's a representative of the kind of people who would groan at this, the bitter singles. And that's Rolf. In his naturally strange way, he's the person who basically refuses to embrace the allure of Valentine's Day. He's the only one who's aware that there are little cupids messing with people's emotions, or as he calls them, mountain sprites. He feels these sprites want to cause mischief and mayhem, which, in a way, he's not wrong about. And he's the one who snaps everyone back to normal by, metaphorically, dousing them with an unpleasant amount of reality, which is represented pretty ingeniously by dirty, filthy mop water.
Rise and shine!
Who? What? Where?
He's a perfect caricature of how all those people who are single on Valentine's Day seem to make themselves look. And not to mention he has that good old Rolf charm throughout the episode, which just makes the scenes with him hilarious on top of somewhat relatable.
You make her all sick.
Overall, this is one of those holiday episodes that hits every single mark. It's a perfect example of how a holiday comedy should be handled. It knows what people love and hate the most about a certain holiday, it knows what the cliches are, and it knows how to poke fun at all of those in ways that the audience will not only find funny, but will also be able to relate to. And I think most importantly, while it's still a comedy, there are those subtle implications of what Valentine's Day is really about. And these implications give off a vibe of understanding to me. A perfect example of this is when Double D smiles at May's Valentine. It's short and sweet, but you can tell it made his day. Even though his feelings for May aren't there anymore, he still appreciates the time they did spend together. And the fact that he keeps the Valentine implies that he's going to treasure it for a long time, despite all of his friends mocking him for his behavior. And for kids especially, that's a really nice thing to show. Even if as kids they won't understand this kind of feeling, it's definitely something they'll be able to look back on that'll hit them harder as they get older. And at the end of the day, that is what Valentine's Day is all about. Showing affection for people you care about. Just a small gesture like that on this kind of holiday can really brighten someone's day. It can add a little effect to that gesture that it wouldn't have received on any other day. And I like that this episode didn't try to shove that down your throats. It plays it out the way it needs to be played out, and it lets you feel however you feel about it. And if that's not a sign of a show that knows a lot about the holiday it's talking about, I don't know what is. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.